Hello guys, welcome to a new video on Tower of God New World. And in this video, I'm going to go over the tier list update after the release of David and Hugo, and the evolution buffs for Eden, Asensio, Dataurek, and Karaka. I'm going to start with the new units, and I'm going to talk about Hugo first. For the below 300 deficit, as you can already see here on the screen, I gave her the irregular ranking. The main reason is that she can easily 1v5 most of the enemy compositions, also some of the most annoying enemies that we have in the game. And at this deficit, she will have literally no issues whatsoever. Her damage will be insane. Her survivability, let's say she will just be immortal, she cannot die. And her utility is also quite good. She removes buffs and she decreases the enemy defenses. So really, really amazing unit. I think she doesn't deserve anything less than irregular for this deficit range. So yeah, absolutely amazing. Now for the above 300, things change a little bit. I decreased her to S plus arrow up. She has the same issues as attack scaling DPS unit, so the same for White, Dawon, and Kunmashini. They will lose out value like the higher your deficit. It's just how it is. The higher your deficit, the higher the enemy defenses, and the less valuable attack damage dealers are going to be. She suffers a lot less, I would say, than the other options we have here in the S plus ranking. She has very high multipliers, very high attack buffs. So in general, she won't really suffer too much, and she will still be usable at the very least up to 400, 450 deficit very easily. And when you start seeing that her damage is not enough, you link an Albelda to her, and that fixes most of the problems, let's say. Still, she will hit a ceiling sooner or later, so don't expect her to be a carry like forever. Definitely, if you are one of those people that are hard pushing adventure, she might fall off for damage, but utility and survivability will remain the same. She doesn't care about deficit for survivability, which is insane. I don't know how they can make an assassin tank so much, but all their tanks are kind of made of paper. I don't get it. It's just stupid to me, but okay. She's one of the best tanks in the game. She just survives forever. It's insane. And also utility, she just removes buffs, as I mentioned, so really good regardless of your deficit. And yeah, that's more or less all for Hugo, I would say. We can move on to the next unit, which is David. And for David, I gave him the S ranking. I gave him also an arrow up. I didn't give him the same rank as Bam and Nare, mainly because I feel like his kit is more of a downgrade to both of them. Like his energy, like the amount of energy he provides is not as high, and the amount of damage buffs he provides are not enough to justify an higher ranking. I also think at the moment he doesn't really have any unit that really synergizes well with his kit. The only exception would be Dawon at the moment. She is the only ranged physical damage dealer that can actually benefit from his kit. All the other ones cannot benefit from 100% of David's kit. Now, if a DPS will come in the future, yeah, maybe it will go higher in ranking and could reach S plus as well. But for now, I didn't feel confident giving him anything higher than S. So yeah, still an amazing ranking, great unit. There are very few downsides to him. I would say not having any debuffs and any crowd control could be one, but not necessarily. Still a really solid unit. You can use him if you are in a situation where you need two bomb units. You can use David as a substitute. So really good. And I gave him the same ranking for the above 300 deficit as well. There is literally very few changes for most support units, like based on deficit. Obviously, the survivability will go down, but Bari helped fixing this problem for the most part. And just in general, by building the team composition right, it's fine. The damage obviously will be irrelevant, but that's the case regardless of deficit. Most supports will just suck in general in terms of damage output. So you only care about their utility, and that makes the changing ranking basically non existent. So, yeah, that's the ranking for David. I don't think there is anything else to mention. So, yeah, I will go over the changes. Now we're going to focus on the below 300 deficit first, and then I will cover the above 300 afterwards. For the below 300, the first big change is Eden. He moved up from S plus arrow up to irregular. The main reason for this is, well, first, he already deserved it, to be honest. Even though at the below 300, we could make a case to say that Eden is not really too insane, because at this point, attack scalar are just a lot more efficient. But the good thing about Eden is that it doesn't give a shit about deficit, so it will always be insane. Now with the revolution buffs, it just got a lot of utility. It has a great source of like energy steal, so it's going to decrease the enemy energy and increase his own, and that's going to be really massive. It's going to increase the number of teams you can use him in by a shit ton. It's really going to be insane. Before, you were kind of forced to use a unit like maybe Mamanak or some other energy regen units, but in this case, you can just run him wherever you want. You need a bit of grouping, but that's going to be really easy to achieve, let's say. Also, already within yellow, we have that stupid Irang that's just amazing at grouping. So, yeah, definitely great pair there. And yeah, I would say now he deserves irregular for sure. And there is not much we can say here, I think. Then I changed also Bam. I gave him an arrow down. Now, the main reason is that, well, we have David that has a similar energy regen mechanic, even though Bam is a lot stronger because every time he uses the special move, he also regen additional energy, and he also has some good energy decrease on the highest attack enemy, some good crowd control. So he's not only limited to providing energy. David neither, but whatever. And I think that maybe this utility alone is going to be not sufficient anymore if we compare him to all the other options we have in S Plus. It doesn't really hold up, I would say. So to highlight that, I decided to give him an arrow down for now. Then we have Asensio. Asensio, I gave him just the arrow up. It was already A plus. I think potentially for below 300, it could go up to S now. His changes were mainly related to survivability, which is now pretty decent, but the damage is okay. He also got a damage buff with the revolution improvements that they made, but it's not enough, I would say. For below 300 deficit, probably yes, so it could actually go up to S, but definitely not for the above 300. So I don't know. I don't think the buffs he received justify building him. So if you have him, now you could potentially use him just in case he's going to at least survive. Maybe he won't provide the best of utility to your team, but it will stay there at the very least. So yeah, I don't know. I feel like A plus is fair for him, and yeah, that's all. I just gave him an arrow up to highlight that he can now actually survive well. Then I moved up data work from B to A arrow up. Now, this only applies mainly to the below 300 deficit because at this point, his damage is somewhat usable. His survivability is going to be good, and you just need to give him a barrier basically, and it will get to the first special move. It will generate a barrier, and afterwards, his survivability will be okay, more or less. The main thing is that if you're facing an enemy like Zahard that breaks barriers, then you're kind of screwed. But in all other scenarios, that survivability is quite okay. So yeah, it definitely improved a lot with Revolution. It's still not enough to like justify investing in this guy, but yeah, I would say at least if you have a maxed out data work, you can now use him if you really want to. Let's say it like that. And yeah, I also increased Shibisu ranking from A to AR up because I couldn't see him having the same ranking at data work. So I was like, oh well, a lower ranking than data work. So I was like, yeah, sure, let me just give him an R up as well. And yeah, that's more or less the idea here. I think there is only one additional change that I didn't mention yet, and that is Karaka. Karaka, I gave him an arrow up at this point. It definitely improved with the revolution. He also got a very interesting purple element resistance decrease debuff that is really nice. And only Verdi had it, but yeah, Verdi is just bad. So in his case, it's quite nice. His durability also improved. So I think he definitely deserves now a very strong stand in the S ranking. And that's why I gave him an arrow up. And that's all for the below 300 deficit, I believe. I didn't change anything else for now. Now, for the above 300 deficit, there are a lot more changes. So let me just go over them briefly. We have Eden, and in this case is also moving up to irregular. And yeah, same reasons as before. With the Revolution upgrade, it just got a lot more team compositions for him, and his damage is just insane regardless of deficit. So this is his place. Not much else we can say. Now, the arrow down on BAM applies again also for this deficit. I think in the near future, I will be moving him down to S. Probably. We'll see. We'll definitely see, but there could be changes. It's still an amazing unit. It will always be, but probably is a bit out of place now for S+. Then for Asensio, I moved him up from A rank to A+, arrow up. So same exact ranking as the below 300 deficit. The main reason is that he now survives. So it doesn't care about deficit anymore. It's just going to stand there and tank. So that's good. That's at least something, let's say. And yeah, that's the whole reason why, mainly. There is really nothing else. There are still scenarios where it's going to die, because it's not like guaranteed that it will be immortal, but there are some good chances. With enough retries and a bit of effect resistance, it will definitely stay alive just fine. So yeah, that's one of the changes. Then we have Data Work. I moved him up from C rank to B arrow up. And yeah, in this deficit, his buffs were not really enough. His damage is basically non-existent. His durability is somewhat fine, but not good enough. And even if he survives, it's just going to provide an attack decrease on a single enemy and a very low physical resistance decrease. There's really not much to his kit that justifies playing him. So to me, BR up is already quite generous, and that's how it's going to stay, I would say. For yellow, those were all the changes. So let me go over purple now. So for purple, I removed the arrow up from both Mashani and white. They were both S plus arrow up. Now they're just S plus. And for both of them, the reason is the same that I was mentioning for Hugo. So these two guys are attack scalers, and they definitely do not scale well with deficit levels. And to highlight that, I wanted to have some sort of change from the below 300 to the above 300, so that you can understand that these guys will eventually like lose their damage and actually do nothing at that point. So just be mindful of that. If you are one of those hard pushing guys and you're trying to reach 500 deficit, these two units will not help you. If you're chilling and you're just aiming for like 300, 350, maybe 400, they can still both be used. They will definitely feel weaker. You might need to link Albelda to them, but in general, they will still do fine. So I think S plus is acceptable for both of them. Then we have Karaka. Well, same change as before. I just gave him the arrow up. This just consolidates his standing in the S rank even more, and that's it. Really good buffs, but nothing super insane. And for purple, that's all, I believe. Yes, it is. Then we have Ejin for red. I just removed the link because before he had a link to Albelda. I still left that in the below 300 deficit. The main reason is that below 300 deficit, I think Ejin can be considered a carry quite easily if you link him to Albelda, so that's going to be really good. Above 300 deficit, his damage is basically out of the window. It's going to fall off a lot harder than white and the other units. So I removed the link because it didn't make any sense anymore as a carry, but he's still there in S plus, and I gave him an arrow. Well, he already had the arrow down, but I left him there because he can at least tank quite reliably with the high evasion he has. He also has HP recovery block and energy decrease. Both of them are really important debuffs. So definitely a unit that provides a lot of value. So even if he lost his damage, he's still a quite valuable unit. Then another change I made here is I gave to Alice the arrow up. I didn't give her the arrow up for the below 300 deficit. Main reason is that below 300 deficit attack scalers are still overall better than her. She's still going to do well, but not as much as others, not as easily as other units. But definitely, as most max HP damage dealers, they shine when the deficit gets higher. So her max HP damage will be a lot more important now, and she's definitely a unit that deserves S plus R up now. And yeah, that's mainly the reason. Another change I made here is Viol. It was previously S arrow down linked to Albelda. Now is A plus linked to Albelda. The main reason is that I couldn't really see him in S anymore, and the higher the deficit, the weaker it was going to be. And linking Albelda to such a weak unit at the end, it was not really a good choice. So I think Viol currently doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'd rather not use him. And I wanted to highlight that by just decreasing his rank even further. So that's the whole idea, I would say. He can still be used probably up to 350 deficit. I wouldn't try to push him any higher. And 350 is still like tryharding to make him work. So yeah, I don't know. And yeah, that's all for red. For green, well, for blue, I didn't change anything. I was debating whether I wanted to decrease Dawn or not, because she suffers obviously from the same issues as white and Mashini. But I will say, thanks to Revolution Bomb, she probably can survive a bit longer. David was also a nice teammate for her, maybe not that insane, but she is probably a lot stronger than the other two options, at least damage wise. So I would say she's still deserving the arrow up, but she's at risk of losing it very soon. So yeah, for blue, that's the only variable I would say for now. Everything else is pretty like it's the same. Now for green, I gave an arrow up to Yasracha as well for the above 300, and I didn't for the below 300. Same reasoning as Alice. This guy has max HP damage, and he also counters a lot of annoying units. For below 300 deficit, you don't really care too much about countering, and you don't really care too much about the max HP portion of his damage. So it was just S plus. But for higher deficit, all of those things become a lot more important. So both the counter annoying unit part and the max HP damage part, they become really, really important. So I think it deserves the arrow up now. And yeah, that's why I made this change. So for the tier list, that's pretty much all. Let me know in the comments, guys, how you feel about this. If you agree with the changes, if you would change something else. I'm always open to discuss all of these things. And yeah, for the tier list, that's all. I also updated the future-proof tier list. So I added both Hugo and David. I gave them both the will stay useful ranking because yeah, I think both of them are just never going to go out of meta, and if they're going to go out of meta, they're still going to be useful. So they're not worthless units. They will never become worthless. So that's why I gave them this kind of ranking. I was also thinking if I wanted to decrease the ranking for Hirang and place him in will stay useful instead of always super valuable. But I think her grouping is just so broken that I think she deserves that. And I don't think they're going to release another grouping unit that can group as well and as consistently as Iran. So that's the main reason why I would say. But yeah, both of them are there. And I also changed Karaka. Previously, it was in will quickly fall off because it was just dying, doing nothing. He had good grouping, but that was about it. But thanks to both Bari and the like buffs he received, I was thinking about moving him to will slowly fall off, but I was like, no, I think now he's pretty solid. It will always at least be useful. So I moved him up to will stay useful. So that's the other change that I made. And all the other ones pretty much stayed the same. So Data Work stayed in the lower rank. Asensio, still basically forgotten. We don't really care even after the buff. To be honest, it could go a bit higher up just for the potential of being a stall tank. But I don't think I would recommend anyone to invest in this guy for that alone. I think that will also be replaced easily. So no thanks to me, still staying in the same ranking. And Eden was already in the top rank, so it's not like I can increase it. So yeah. Those were all the changes, guys. Again, let me know in the comments how you feel about those, and thanks so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.